You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Parker Ainsworth, Locked On Coogs here, in what might be the newsiest segment of the three today. Houston's schedule is getting easier through, admittedly, no doing of their own, and through some unfortunate circumstances. And I want to stress, I don't want to root. I don't want to root for kids to get hurt in college sports. It's certainly not the point. So in all of this, obviously, both the Texas Tech running back Quentin Joyner and his injury, and to Miami's, I guess actually it's Oklahoma State's Zaquan Patterson. I hope that all things, all get better soon. I don't mean to necessarily liken the two. We don't know a whole lot about one, but Texas Tech did lose star running back Quentin Joyner with an injured ACL. I'm assuming it means tear, but I want to report, as it was said, injured ACL. USC transfer, top transfer overall as running back. And Texas Tech is down to just 3 running backs healthy on the roster now. And that's a big deal. We'll talk about in a second. Miami, in the same couple of hour span, dismissed top DB transfer Zaquan Patterson, just dismissed from the team. He had been a consistent player, rotational player as a freshman at Miami last season. Many ranked him as the top tackler in the freshman class last season, was his top 65 recruit of South Florida, the number 6 safety in his class as a high schooler, went to play for the hometown Miami Hurricanes, got to Oklahoma State in the transfer portal last offseason, and ultimately is now on his way somewhere else, right? And maybe somewhere else in the conference. I don't know. We won't see Quentin Joyner for at least another year. And then admittedly, it could take another week or two after that. You just never know in knee injuries and stuff. And that means that 2 opponents on Houston's schedules lost big name gets that made them seem like teams that would be good this season. Now, again, the biggest thing here is that Joyner should be getting healthy. I don't mean to get excited about him not being healthy. And whatever happened with Zaquan Patterson, if it's something that, is a problem, I hope it gets fixed, right? However, I would point out that we know Texas Tech likes to play a lot of running backs. We also know that Oklahoma State lost a lot of games last year, was hoping to have a big transfer portal class and get better. Mike Gundy called this class the first transfer portal class that he'd ever bought. Well, that buying of things has now led to dismissing his biggest get in many ways from the football team. At least his biggest defensive get is now no longer on the football team. Meanwhile, Texas Tech and the multiple running backs, right? Suddenly, the list of contenders at full strength Houston will have to play continues to dwindle. I don't know if you consider Colorado a contender or not. Some people are really high on the guys they brought in. Some people are not. But you get them on a Friday night, short week, in the Houston heat. They got to come down from the mountains. I think that's working Houston's favor. Suddenly, your next Big 12 opponent, Texas Tech, just lost a running back, and you get them at home as well. Next week, you're on the road to Oklahoma State. Listen, Oklahoma State did play in the Big 12 title game 2 years ago, but they were dead last the conference last year, and they just lost their biggest portal get. You get them again in mid-October. You still get 5 of your first 6 games in the city of Houston. You still get your Power 4 opponent as Oregon State, which feels kind of more like an in-between Power 4, Group of 5, Group of 6 opponent based on how things have unfolded with the Pac-12. Rest in peace, right? You still get Arizona State, and albeit not, it is a road game. It's not at home. That's your toughest team in terms of last year's win-loss percentage. They went 11-3 last year, but Arizona State also went 6-2 in one-score games, lost their best player. Listen, sometimes there's going to be a regression to the means. Houston's schedule means they miss out on BYU, Utah, Kansas State. Pretty consensus, 3 of the top 5 teams in the conference. BYU, some people are shaky on with the quarterback question, but everyone understands that their defense and other parts of their offense are pretty strong there in Provo. Suddenly, okay, that's not as challenging. You missed out that half the conference, that portion of the conference. The portion you play is getting beat up a little bit. The schedule plays a key role here in how Houston is set up for success this season. Listen, this is not an even schedule compared to other teams. Utah, Kansas State, Iowa State, those schools have more challenging schedules than Houston, at least in terms of conference play. We'll see what the non-conference teams look like. Maybe Stephen of Boston's super deluxe good. We'll talk to somebody about that later this week, right? But overall, it does feel like Houston's getting a lot of breaks in this schedule. I mean, hey, frankly, it's why Drake Toll predicted them to go 8-4 in this ranking we open up the show talking about with, right? And with that being said, I do feel like you kind of gotta carpe diem a little bit, right? You got to seize the moment with this schedule because Joe McGuire is going to have to find someone to get another running back. Chris Level, Locked on Texas Tech. Chris and Casey are on a great show. Chris pointed out that he just feels like it's an inevitable that McGuire at Texas Tech is going to have to now move someone from slot or defensive back or safety, something to come play running back because it's too important to that offense to be able to run two running backs at the same time. You can't risk someone breaking a shoelace or whatever and suddenly start putting those things in jeopardy. And so he imagines they'll be moving someone. Well, if they move a slot, that means that they're now diminished at two spots. Suddenly things are snowballing a little bit, right? And listen, I hesitate to cheer others' demise, or certainly at like their bad fortune. But I do think that as you're watching news unfold around the conference, things continue to break Houston's way. This is remarkable for the Cougs to get this kind of schedule and then to see, okay, but Houston does have to play Tech and Arizona State, and those are tough games. And suddenly Tech's roster's getting dinged. Okay, but Oklahoma State, spent a lot of money in the transfer portal. Da, da, da. Oh, suddenly those guys might not get to stick around because they're not culture fits. Talking to Cody over at Locked On Oklahoma State, Cody Stovall, he was saying that, frankly, he didn't say exactly what happened with the exodus of Zaquan Patterson, but he mentioned things like culture like 5 or 6 times in a span of just a few minutes. I think it's safe to say that there's just not a mesh there between the two. And suddenly you wonder, okay, what's going on over there in Stillwater? Like by midseason, is a coach on the hot seat, are things shaking up not so great? Like things are working. Things are working. Things are working. And so with things working, I want to talk in the last segment about what success could mean for Houston. What would success mean for the Cougs with this schedule? Before we get too far, I do want to remind you all that today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at OpenPhone. Now, if you're running a business, every missed call can be money left on the table. Think about the last time you needed a service.